All right, all right, all right. We live. Yeah. All right, all right, all right, all right. I want you to welcome to eThought Conversations. As you know, we do this every Sunday, 6 o'clock. And today is no different. We're here with you today, and we're going to bring you some insightful, engaging, informative conversations as we do. I want to welcome my guests because I don't want to belabor the time because we have so much to talk about, and we have such a distinguished and esteemed guests here today that I'm going to keep it moving. I'm going to welcome first. We're going to do ladies first. I have Miss LaRhonda Chastang.
Good job.
Hashtag, but I got it right. And she is the chief steward and senior consultant with the Chastang Group. She's a result-oriented leader with a strong commitment to inclusive leadership and addressing systemic factors that contribute to inequality. She has over 20 years of experience, and she works with organizations and senior leaders across various industries to advance diversity and inclusion efforts that supports the diversification of the workforce, increase employee engagement, improve patient outcomes, and create inclusive culture where everyone, did I say everyone?
Everybody.
Everyone feels valued, respected, and can thrive. I want y'all to do some thumbs up right now for LaRhonda Chastang. I'm not gonna say hashtag. I'm just gonna say LaRhonda.
We talked about this.
I know we talked about that. My eyes want to say hashtag, but my brain says Chastang.
Just say LaRhonda.
Yes. Give some thumbs up for her. Thank you. Next up, we have Brother Jakkar Aimery. He's an emerging journalist, expositor, and activist. Jakkar has served in leadership positions and has held general memberships with organizations such as the National Black Public Relations Society, the Pentecostal Assemblies of the World, the National Association of Black Journalists, and the NAACP. And what I like is he's committed to honoring and continue in the tradition of his predecessors to tell stories of unheard, to tell the stories of the unheard, let me correct that, provide spiritual guidance to those in need and to challenge systemic and social injustices. Welcome, my friend and my brother, Jakkar Aimery. Show him some love, give him some thumbs up. Come on. It's the National Black
Thank you.
There we go. Okay. And if you watch, you got to turn your thing down so it'll echo. There you go. All right, there we go. And then we have also with us Deputy Sheriff Ray Washington. You go by Raphael or you go by Ray when it's formal?
Raphael is my government name, but you know, call me Ray, so I'll go with Ray.
We'll go with Ray Washington. Ray Washington. He has been in law enforcement for 37 years. When did you start? At 10?
Exactly. I'm really 40. I'm 60, but I really look 40, so I go with 40. That's cool. Yeah.
Yes, he does. He's one of my workout partners. 37 years in law enforcement, 24 with the Detroit Police Department, 13 with Wayne County Sheriff's Department. He also serves as Chief Security Officer for Greater Grace Temple, Pentecostal Assemblies of the World, and he's also the owner of CPL Pro, where they offer controlled pistol license instruction. So give some thumbs up and welcome also Deputy Sheriff Ray Washington. I need to see some love. Show me some thumbs up. All right. There we go. Let's get started. We're here because we're in a pivotal time in history where we're going to write history. And so now our theme today is racism. Hashtag I can't breathe. You are our professionals. So my opening question to each one of you is, because you're professional and you oftentimes don't get to speak personally in the workforce, how do you manage your personal anger and frustration against systemic racism versus your professional decorum? I'll start with you, LaRhonda, then we'll go to Jakkar, then we'll go to Ray.
You were gonna do ladies first. You just put me out there.
Just for now. Then it's going to flow. So let's go.
Man, okay. I'm gonna repeat the question just so I make sure I answer it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna keep it brief. How do I manage what I feel personally, what's going on, and still remain professional in the workplace?
Yes.
I have the luxury and extreme privilege to work in the diversity and inclusion space. So I get to express my frustration in my workplace, of course, respectfully, but I have the opportunity to influence senior leaders and push the envelope as it relates to equity in what I do. So I don't have a lot of place where I can't be my authentic self. I don't code switch when I go to work. I show up my authentic self. But I'm also honest. I have the type of team that I can say today's not a good day for me, or I need 30 minutes, or I'm taking today off. So when it becomes overwhelming, because there is a weight associated with doing diversity and inclusion work, as well as being wrapped in brown skin, living in America. So when I need the time off, I take it. And I have dynamic team members who allow us that space to heal and to recover and to feel supported.
Backtrack, code switch, explain that.
Okay. I think everybody knows, but I'm glad that's an assumption I made. Code switching is when you are one way, when you with your girls or your homies or with your family, you speak a certain way, you may have a certain vernacular, a certain tone, a certain way in which you act and behave. And then you go to work or you go into mixed audiences and you are different because the expectation is that you should be different. I got delivered from code switching several years ago. It's too much work. It's too heavy. It's too much of a burden. I am my authentic self in any room that I'm in because that is enough.
Okay. Jakkar, how do you maintain?
I think similar to what LaRhonda said, I believe that it is possible to be professional, but I do not think that there is a dichotomy in being professional and being present, right? And I think a component of being present is acknowledging the ways in which the social climate has an effect on your mental, socio-emotional, and sometimes even physical health. If that means taking a step back, then by all means do that. If that means taking a day off, by all means doing that. But I think it also means showing up authentically, being who you are, accepting the fact that all of the things that are going on are having effects, real effects and implications as it relates to your being and the ways in which you navigate space. And so I think that you have to be authentic. And I think that that's a great way to be both present and be professional. Be authentic, be genuine. And ultimately let it be known it is what it is. Just a quick thing before I move on. Having a conversation with one of my colleagues, and I think that while she was trying to bring a sense of peace amid the duress, she said, well, if it means anything to you, I don't see people for color. I don't see you for how you physically perform. And I think that was problematic because, I mean, maybe she was trying to be nice, but I think the nuance of that statement is essentially, because I don't see color, I don't see you. I don't see your experience. I don't see the challenges that you're having to deal with in this space as a professional. Let me just add parenthetically, I don't think, I'll put it to you this way.
Come on, let's go.
I want to be as politically as correct as possible. You have to be real. You just have to be authentic, man. Let people know this is who I am. Respect it, honor it.
Okay, that was good. I'm coming for you in the non-professional matter. So I'm coming for the activist momentarily, but I'm going to Ray next. Go ahead, Ray.
So let me first say, because I have to say this, the thoughts and opinions that I express on this video chat, on this Zoom chat, are mine and mine only. I'm not representing the Wayne County Sheriff's Office in my professional life. So I want to get that out there. So I don't want everybody to think this is how the sheriff thinks about what we're talking about. This is my opinion, and I've been allowed to do that. So I wanted to say that first and foremost. Now, what I want you to do, Eric, right quick is hit that again so I can make sure that I'm on point with what it is. Listening to them, it kind of threw me because I'm really into what they're doing and what they're saying. So hit it just one time, right quick.
Assuming you have some personal frustration and anger right now with systemic racism, how do you balancing that and being professional in the workplace?
Right. So here's the thing. So in the workplace, it's all I've ever wanted to do was be a police officer, and I've been fortunate enough to do that, to live my dream. So I've never really worked a day in my life, as I always like to say, because I'm actually living the dream that I had as a kid to do this. And so as I go into my workplace and have to deal with the systemic racism that exists in police agencies. It's not easy for me, but my faith sustains me, first of all. And I know that as I listen to that and as I see that, the things that I don't like when it relates to racism, I know how to handle that and channel that. And I don't let it knock me off my square professionally. And I think a lot of that has to do with, I don't just see police officers as I go to work, and I don't just see police officers when I get off work. My circle is so wide. When my group is so wide that when I get off work, I'm dealing with entrepreneurs as yourself, Eric, and I'm dealing with sanitation workers, and I'm dealing with computer IT people and journalists and all kind of genres of people that I don't get to just see as I'm work. This is it. This is all I'm dealing with, and let it knock me off my square and take me to some place where I don't have to go. I think it has a lot to do with my faith, again, directing me as I deal with that, as I channel that, and absolutely when I'm away from it, that I'm away from it, and I've got so much more to do in such a big roller skating circle and such a workout circle and a bike circle that I don't have to channel my whole world into what I see and what I deal with in my professional life.
Okay, so let me come at you now. How do you feel when people see you as the enemy, but yet you're the first person they call when they get in trouble?
So that's a good question, and fortunately enough, as people see me as the enemy who don't know me, there's people who see me and don't know me, and people that know me that see me as their friend. That criminal, for lack of a better word, that I had to deal with in the street, he sees me as someone who dealt with him correctly. So he gets to say, yes, I was locked up and I was wrong, or he had to check me and I was wrong, but he treated me the right way. You know, a lot of people when I had 24 years in the Detroit Police Department, I had to deal with people from a standpoint of when I arrest them or when I deal with them, they don't like me and they think I'm this and that, but I'm going to see them again because I lived right next door to them, because I went to church with them, because I know their parents, because I know their family. So that allowed me to police the right way, even though they may not have liked me, and I have to deal with that professionally because I deal with it as a professional. We all get to understand, and I get to understand, you don't like the police. It's not that you don't like me. You just don't like what you think I represent until I have that encounter with you.
So Jakkar, as an activist, are we protesting against law enforcement? Give me some direction of why we're protesting.
Well, I think that our protesting is no doubt their actions and their demonstrations of rebellion. And I think that it is something that has garnered the attention of local, statewide, federal, and even worldwide governments. And it is not so much that we are protesting police officers as individuals, but rather the systemic oppression that is often imposed upon communities, particularly Black and poor communities. And so just touching back on what Ray was saying, this idea, this notion that being against the police or not necessarily being the biggest fan of the police doesn't necessarily mean that they're not the biggest fan of him. I think it's one thing to address that a consequence of white supremacist logic is binary thinking, which means that you have to be this or you have to be that. It's either Black, white, gay, straight, cis, trans, rich, poor, for Ray, against Ray, right? Just for the sake of this conversation. And I think that there is no nuance in that. And one of the things that we have to pay close attention to is it is very much so possible to be anti-police or to be anti-police systems, but still pro the people who you may have and conducted or constructed rather relationship with. One of my good friends actually was touching on this. He posted that his father is a cop and that he himself is not anti-police, but what he is for and what he does support is the defunding of the police, in that you have to channel funds to places and parts of the community where it's needed most. And he was basically saying, it is okay to embody multiple identities. Kimberly Crenshaw talks about this. She introduces it as intersectionality. The fact that you can embody multiple identities and that you can have multiple identities that overlap in one person into one location. So yes, it is very much so possible to be anti-system of oppression and still be pro-person.
Right.
So LaRhonda, How many times have you had to be the silent Black girl, not to be viewed as the angry Black woman? How do you show passion without being stereotyped?
I don't think that's possible.
Okay.
I'm gonna just say it real. I'm a passionate person, period. And I think no matter how articulate I come across, I don't care how I couch my messaging, if my messaging is not something that the majority wants to hear, because I am female and because I have black brown skin, I am going to that stereotype of she's angry or she's coming across a certain way. So a lot of times this is what I've done in my career now, because I have a little bit of wisdom and I'm learning how to play the game. I have white allies, right? Okay. So I can have a white colleague, another white female in the room with me, and we will echo each other. She will repeat something I said because somebody else will hear her differently. It happens sometimes just gender, because I'm a female, regardless of my color, men don't always hear women the same. So when we are in the room, our ideals don't always bubble up. And so we echo one another. So I can't underscore enough what the two brothers have said about you can be pro person, but against systems. It is decades of systemic racism that has created this powder keg that we are in. It is a system. It is not a person. It is a system of oppression. And it is going to take a systemic response as well, from a corporate perspective, from a community perspective, from law enforcement, from clergy, from all aspects of life. And the one thing that kind of boils my blood is that when we feel like your form of activism or how you choose to be engaged in the struggle should be the way I do it. So there'll be people who want to get their signs and be on the front lines. We need the Angela Davises and we need the Black Panther, but we also need Thurgood Marshalls. We need people to run for office. We need people to be judges. So how our activism looks can be different, and it doesn't have to be an either or, but a both and. So I have to completely agree with the fact that we have to be broad in our thinking, broad in our strategy, and broad in our approach.
Ray, what does police reform look like to you? Do we need police reform? And I'm gonna pose that to you as well, Jakkar, from a different perspective, from the protest side. What are we looking for?
So I'm glad you asked me that question, because I think police reform looks like, first and foremost, as agencies identify those individuals in their agencies who are causing the things that we see around the country today. I think as you start to look closely at your rank and file, even as supervisors, as you start looking closely and you see where they are and how many complaints and how many citizen complaints and how many use of force complaints and how many from people all around the city or the area that they work in. So there's no conspiracy of let's get Ray Washington today. Why is it, sir, Ray, that you have so many or a large number of or unusual number of the same kind of use of force complaints, the same kind of demeanor complaints that from different people? How is it that this is coming toward you? And when we identify those people and we know who they are, and it's just the reform comes in with looking them in the face and saying, you got to talk to me about how this is happening with you, so we can, if you're going to be working and serving the citizens of wherever you're serving, how you're going to do that effectively. These are the changes you're going to have to make. That's an agency reform. When we talk about other types of reform that we need to really look at, it's on a much higher level. It's on a federal level, so to speak. It's on a level where there has to be some uniformity in the policies and things that police agencies are presenting and are using in their everyday life. We can't have so many different, well, in Detroit, they do it this way. In Cleveland, it might be a zero tolerance action that they took and you have to be fired. Over in Indiana, Indianapolis might be something else. I think that continues to fan the flame of what's going on when we talk about we needing police reform. If we all kind of, as much as we can, lay down some policies of this is how we're doing it in America, in police agencies, that's best we can, I think you're going to see some of these things drop and fall off these use of force that are going way beyond the scope of what you taught and what your policy talks about. And we're going to start to do it right, because if you don't, across the board in South Carolina and in Georgia and in Detroit, it's all going to be the same, either zero tolerance policy or the same suspension or the same consequences as we all are doing. And I think that helps.
Well, who's holding how do we check and balance the accountability? Where's the accountability coming from? Is it from the rank and file? Is it from the leadership? Is it from the police commissioners board? Is it from the mayor?
So I think what you just saw, the accountability has to come from us all. As a police officer, if I'm not accountable for my partner, I'm going to end up in the same possible trouble that my partner is in. I think the accountability comes from, again, identifying those that we know are causing problems. The accountability comes from the Board of Police Commissioners and the Chief Investigator's Office, who are investigating citizen complaints against police officers. And again, getting that right as much as they can and doing it the right way. If they're sustained, if they're not, it's dealing with it as we see it and dealing with it swiftly. I don't mean swiftly that we're reckless and not getting all the facts, but swiftly in presenting what the consequences are, if there are any, because the longer we take to decide how we're going to do something, the more it looks to the citizens that we're trying to figure out how to cover that up. And until we start hitting that right, I think we're going to keep looking at the things that were happening. In my opinion, and I'm gonna let somebody else in. My opinion, when it was very obvious that we all saw that officer murder that man, and I called it murder from day one. I'm sorry, it's a police officer. I'm not sorry. It's a police officer that murdered somebody, and we saw that. Of course, you got to get some facts of before, and you got to get some facts of what brought, and you got to get. There's nothing that man could have done, handcuffed, whatever he did before being handcuffed, to cause me to put my knee on his neck and kill him and murder him. And it took 4 days. They fired him immediately, but it took 4 days to arrest him and charge him. It didn't take 4 days. I promise you, had that happened in Detroit, we got a prosecutor in Michigan, in Wayne County, named Kim Worthy, that would have charged that man and had him arrested and charged him immediately. When I say immediately, after a couple of days or so. It's my opinion that if they had done what they should have done in 2 days, what they did in 4 days, which they could have done in 2 days, I don't think America's up in flames today. I really don't think so.
Okay, Jakkar, what you want to see?
I think when we think about reform, when we consider reform, particularly and especially in the context of systemic and pernicious oppression, one of the things I think we have to pay close attention to is reform is what's gotten us in trouble. There's a difference between reforming something and dismantling something. When we're talking about things and systems that have been violent and that has diminished and relegated the Black experience to something that is not worthy to live, not worthy to thrive, not worthy to exist, specifically in the land of our birth, it's extraordinarily problematic. So this isn't something that has to be reformed. Reform has taken on and has gotten us in the trouble we're in. When we look at things like the prison industrial complex, or what Michelle Alexander calls the new Jim Crow, the fact that it has taken on a new face, it has taken on a new name, it's reform. But it's something that has to be dismantled. It's something that has to be torn down and resisted. I think secondly, another thing that we have to consider when we think about reform is the use of language. The use of language is very, 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 very pivotal in sort of achieving this notion of reform, right? So when I think about language, I'm thinking about the ways in which protesters and demonstrators are being characterized and pathologized in the media as looters and as thugs. It's deeply, deeply problematic. The president tweeted on the 29th about protesters in Minneapolis and calling them thugs. Yet on May 1st, when he spoke about the gun carrying Confederate flag flying protesters that showed up to the Michigan State Capitol, he
people.
called them very good people.
Good people.
So we have to look at the ways in which people are characterized, the language that we associate to people. If we want to be quite frank, the 4 officers from Minneapolis were thugs. Amy Cooper in New York City, who called the police on Chris Cooper, she was a thug, right? The Louisville officers who killed Breonna Taylor in the comfort of her own home, those were thugs. Gregory and Travis Michael, who killed Ahmaud Arbery, jogging in his own neighborhood, those were thugs, right? So we have to really, really pay attention to the ways in which people are being characterized, the way that they're being identified, even when we use things that are commonly understood like minorities. No, they're not necessarily minorities, they're minoritized. When we call people poor, they're not poor, they're systemically non-dominant, right? So we have to pay attention to the language that we use. And I think it contributes greatly to not just reforming, but actually dismantling things.
Okay. Thank you for that. Y'all killing it. Okay, I'm coming to you, LaRhonda. Then I'm gonna invite Pastor Timmy to the conversation because he has a movement going on that I definitely want him to expound on. Now it's Monday. Tomorrow, I'm in the workplace. You're a DI, diversity and inclusion specialist. How do I have these tough conversations when people are not getting it or they want to just keep on as business as usual? How do I have these tough conversations? Because I'm angry. I'm on the Zoom meeting, but I'm angry.
Well, I don't think that the taxes and the tactics that we use in corporate America are any different than what Jakkar is talking about. We may package it differently, but when we talk about reform or dismantling systems of white supremacy that uphold and undergird our corporations, it is the same. So when you look at our board of governances and you don't see people of color, I'm thinking of like CVS, Bank of America, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, none of them have Black people in senior leadership. So when you talk about systems that create not only a bench, but a pipeline of people of color into senior leadership positions, corporate America has failed Black America. We need to stop working with marketing and communications, creating these really great statements when these things happen to support Black communities, but then live in hypocrisy. So Amazon can come out and say, we support Black America and we come against racial injustice or police brutality, but you fire employees who say, I should have better wages or safe working conditions. And then you have senior leaders referred to him as not articulate or smart. So it's a hypocrisy there that even in corporate America, we have to dismantle the way in which we run our corporations. So I don't think that it's different. I think the strategy and the tactics should be the same. We set targets for everything we do in corporate America. I don't care if you're in healthcare, education, technology, media, you set targets, and our salaries and our bonuses are attached to meeting and exceeding those targets. So when you talk about diversity and inclusion, everybody is always, we're working on it because people are afraid to set serious targets around diversity and inclusion, because if they were, they'd set them and then they hold people accountable. You don't get your bonus, you don't get your raise unless we meet these metrics. Build your bench, build your pipeline. And it's not just for Black people, it's for all minoritized groups, right? So we can talk about pay equity. I could be on this Zoom for the next 3 days talking about what we can do in corporate America, right? 4, 5, 6, 7 days. We could unpack this and peel back all of the layers. But the bottom line, we are talking about a system of white supremacy. We are talking about the way in which not only the language that we use to describe it, because it fits the narrative. Like when you use specific language, it is to support and to prop up a narrative that you want to justify.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Period. I'm gonna stop there because my brother just logged in and we want to give him an opportunity to jump into the conversation.
So I like best practices. So it's Monday and I'm, hey, LaRhonda, and I'm of a different ethnicity.
Yes.
Why is everybody so upset? Why don't we just let justice take its place and I just trust the system? I mean, come on, help me out.
Okay, couple things is gonna happen if you do that to LaRhonda. LaRhonda the person, not LaRhonda the consultant, not LaRhonda the professional. You're not going to make me responsible for educating you. I'm not going to be responsible for carrying the burden of your white guilt or trying to help you understand what my experience is like. Now, some days you might get a pass, and And depending on our relationship, because I do have relationships with people who are not Black, and many of them are watching us right now, that we have cultivated a relationship where we can have safe, difficult conversations with mutual respect, because we can disagree. I was sharing with you earlier that I said I want my racism Southern. I want to know exactly what you think and feel and where you stand, because I'd rather it be out in the open than you say something and walk it back. I don't deal with disingenuous, non-authentic people. So if I'm in the workplace, we create safe spaces. Okay, I'll put on my professional hat. We create safe spaces for people in our department to come and talk about how they're feeling, how to get resources. We encourage people to use EAP, to take mental health days. We actually provide amazing resources for our people leaders, because a lot of times you have white people who really just don't know what to do. They don't know what to say, and they do want to be empathetic. And so if you are a person in corporate America and you lead a team, it is your responsibility to reach out to your Black colleagues and the people who report to you. And that reach out should be calibrated based upon your relationship with that person. So if y'all not close, don't call that person talking about racism and police brutality and do I think you're a racist. Calibrate that reach out in an authentic way to just make sure they're okay, acknowledge that racism exists, point them in the direction of resources, and then listen more than you talk.
Good practice. Good practice. And why Pastor Tim's coming back on, that Wi-Fi get you. But Ray, I mean, how many people want to say all police are bad? Tear down that stigmatism for me. Give me, is it a percentage? What?
So obviously we know all police officers aren't bad. I was talking to somebody about this, I think just yesterday. We talk about, I heard someone say, and I didn't look it up, but I trust what they were saying as law enforcement official. There's about 9 million police officers in the country. And you run into these few, and we say these few, if that few could be 100, could be 200. When you consider the number, it's 9,200,000. It's still too many. 200 is way too many. But there is a thought that, yeah, all police officers are bad out here. And again, as I tell people all the time, all police officers aren't bad, because you know a ton of them who aren't. And it's incumbent upon us that call ourselves the good cops to call out the bad cops.
Absolutely.
Also, I think it's incumbent upon people, young people, and they way away from this now. Again, I grew up in the 60s. I was born in 60, and all I wanted to do back then when little boys and girls wanted to be nurses and doctors and police and firemen. Well, that day is way gone. And so now we're dealing with a generation that where a lot of them are into the tech field, the tech things and the music fields and things like that. We still looking for people who want to be the change that they want to see. I tell people all the time, you can't do this job to get rich, because you're not going to get rich. You're going to take care of your family and be able to do that very well. But you talk about, the police are this and the police is that, and they should do this and they should do that. And what I'm saying to high schoolers all the time, maybe you're not going to college right away. Come on the police department. You can go to school like a lot of us did on the job. Be the change that you want to see. And I promise you, and I know my sister looking like I heard that so many times, but it's a fact. It's a fact. We can't just talk about, what the police are. We got to talk about, I want to make a change and I want to make a difference. And even if you're not going to be a police officer, maybe you're going to be an activist to say, this is the reform that I'm going to try to push to my Congress people, my legislators, and try to see some change. But the notion that all police officers are bad, we are the exact people who are going to come to your aid, and to your rescue, and I don't even know you, and I'm gonna stand in front of you, and I'm gonna take a bullet for you. That ain't a bad police officer. That's somebody that's going to come in and do their job. Is he going to change now once he saved you? Is now the next run, he's going to brutalize someone and treat them the wrong way? Possibly. But you know what happens? That's because us, again, in law enforcement professionals, we're not identifying people. You know what? We take a psychological exam to come on this job to say that we're okay, to be on it, to be carrying and get a badge and a gun. And we never take another psychological exam again. In 25 years, you can't tell. Look, I was just talking to a law enforcement official the other day. I said, something's wrong with me. Not really, but I'm just saying, something's wrong with me when I could see a decapitated body and a baby shot up and laying in the street and somebody in an accident and their head cut off, and I could be eating a Snickers while I'm looking at that. Something is wrong. Something's going on that says we need to talk to you and make sure that you're thinking about what it is that you should be thinking about when you're going out to protect and serve. We go from getting the cat out of a tree to being in a shootout on the very next run.
Yeah.
And getting through that and going to someone's domestic violence situation and pulling a man off a woman, and then trying to channel that anger that we see a man or a woman brutalizing and mistreating the other person, and trying to channel that, and then go home to our families and try to be loving and gentle and taking. We got a lot going on, and we need to talk to somebody. And I think that will keep us on the right track that we signed up to do, was simply protect and serve and not judge and kill, because that's not who we are, and that's not what we should be doing.
So are you a proponent for more psychological testing more frequently?
Absolutely. I think so. So I told somebody that, and they said, and somebody else said it, and I heard Dr. Isaiah McKinnon, who was the chief of police, doctor in his profession, talk about that, and I totally agree with it because it was true. But then when we say, oh yeah, we're going to test everybody about every 5 years, and they said, well, you know what? You're going to test everybody in 5 years, every 5 years, you're going to have no police officers on the police force. And so what that says is, no, we're going to talk to you. We're not going to say your job is dependent on this. You know, we go every year, twice a year sometimes, to make sure we're very, very proficient in our shooting abilities, because we're carrying a gun and we may have to use a gun, which we 9 times out of 10 don't even use. 24 years, 37 years, I've never had to shoot anyone. I've been shot at, I didn't get the shot off, I lived, whatever, did some of the most dangerous things in law enforcement that you can do. And I carried a gun, and I made sure that I was proficient in doing that. But we never say, come back in and let's just talk about it. Let's just talk about the 5 years you've been through. Let's just talk about what you're thinking about now. Not that we're going to fire you, not that we're going to look bad or look down on you. It's just because we want you to be the professional that you signed up to be from the first day on the job. And now it's your 15th day on the job. We need you to be the same person. Okay.
There's a measurement. Jakkar, what do you say to people who say, man, protesting is antiquated, it doesn't yield any effects, and y'all just out there screaming and shouting, and then come next month, it's going to be another agenda?
Well, I think, again, when we look at protests and when we look at demonstrations, particularly from elected officials and multiple personalities in the media, protesters and demonstrators are being characterized as rioters. And I think to those who say that protesting is antiquated and it is something of yesteryear, it is no longer in use in existential day-to-day living, I think it's totally and completely false. I think that there is a historic legacy in protesting, and I would actually go as far as to say that they're not riots, they're actually rebellions. Okay. Dr. Mark Lamont Hill spoke about this, and really there was a more broad exploration of what it means to riot and what it means to rebel. Rioting is sort of associated with this random, senseless act of violence. It's irrational, right? Rebellions are more of political statements. They're organized and they are coordinated acts of resistance. And I think that we can look throughout history and see where there were intentional acts of resistance. The 1963 Birmingham movement, which was 37 days long, that was a revolution. That was a rebellion. The 1961 Freedom Rides, which was 7 months long, that was a revolution, and that was a rebellion. The 1960s Greenboro sit-in, which was 6 months long, right? The 1955, 1956 bus boycott in Montgomery, which was 381 days long, right? That was a revolution. That was a rebellion. Sit-ins, you know, and we can, I mean, literally, we can pinpoint every one of these events and every one of these attempts to actively resist where it merited a response, it merited change. And for those who are saying that it doesn't mean anything, we shouldn't be doing it, it's deeply problematic. And those are the individuals who really, I'll put it to you this way. One of the most important things in communication is to hear what's not being said. When you hear people characterizing as people who are just completely rioting and tearing down things, it really gives you an idea of who they are internally. These are people who are white supremacists at their core, which white supremacy is inextricably tied to capitalism, right? This value of profit and this value of property over humanity. The fact that you're more upset about riots and protests and rebellions and revolutions than you are about people being murdered by the state, you have a problem. And it goes to show you who people really, really are. And to those who say we should get rid of it, we should stop doing it, listen. When we did the sit-ins, you wouldn't listen. We sang "We Shall Overcome" and locked arms, you wouldn't listen. We campaigned on social media, Black Lives Matter, at the minimum matter, right? Why not Black lives are loved or Black lives are needed, right? But at the very minimum, Black Lives Matter, you still wouldn't listen. We tried to kneel on the field and got characterized as SOBs, and you still wouldn't listen. So now when white people and when corporate America particularly are upset and infuriated about property and profit, now you're dealing with capitalists, which are white supremacists, because you're not valuing people. You're not valuing human life. So no, it's not antiquated. And I think that is something that should continue to push back until we completely dismantle, we can't control
But why do you people rebellion or riot or rebellion in your own neighborhoods and tear down your own neighborhoods and burn your own buildings?
Well, that's something that we can really unpack, because are they really our neighborhoods? Are they really our buildings? I mean, we can, like LaRhonda said, we can really unpack some serious historic legacies and let's talk about redlining, right? Are they really our neighborhoods, or are they neighborhoods that we were explicitly cut off from occupying? And then now you have this new age gentrification, which is really, it's the existential version of redlining, right? I mean, we can really walk this thing. So are they really our neighborhood? Yes. I mean, let's call a thing a thing. They're not our neighborhoods. They're your neighborhoods. You put up these stores and you got our rent going up $1,500 and $1,600 a month. Okay. So we really have to put some things in perspective. People, let me take a drink. Hold on.
Jakkar, drink some water, brother. Drink some water, brother.
There's a lot to unpack.
That's a lot. We're gonna be here for a while, Doc.
Listen,
Jakkar, it is a lot. It is a lot.
It's a lot to unpack.
But guess
I got two thoughts.
But guess what he said?
What he
I'm gonna come to you, LaRhonda. Next, go ahead, Ray.
I'm sorry, who's on? LaRhonda?
No, go ahead, Ray. Go ahead.
All right, Ray. Then we'll go to LaRhonda.
You talk about they won't listen, and I just said that. We've been talking about this since the 60s, and it's still the same thing. But when you talk about, is it really ours? No, it's not ours, but it's where you got to eat. It's where you got to go get your mother some bread. It's where you got to go get your some clothes for your back.
Let's address food deserts.
No, I got you.
That's another social inequality that we're not ready to unpack.
But hold on. Those are necessities that you use every day. And you're going to have to do that. And I'm just saying, I'm with the cause. I mean, right on. And we've been marching and we've been doing all. I'm not with crime, because when you're committing crime, although I would not dare put together murdering someone with looting or breaking a window, but it's still a crime. And I have to stand here. Trump ain't law and order. I'm standing here as law and order. And I'm saying, when we start to do that, we're putting ourselves still in a situation where we're really not helping ourselves, because now you're going to jail, you got to pay fines, you got to do that. When you're turning over police cars, when you're burning police cars, when you're burning police buildings, you're gainfully employed, your taxes going up, because that stuff's got to be paid for again. It's just, and listen, I don't have the answer. I'm not saying I'm saying the answer. I'm just saying those things that we can do and that we're doing in a destructive manner are going to come back to bite us one way or another.
Well, let me insert this. I want to be very clear. I am not advocating that we should go around killing people and burning down buildings. Right. However, it's a very serious statement, and I think that it is revealing of a serious position that I can only get your attention when a building goes down.
It's a shame.
I can only get your attention when a window is broken. That's the only time I can get your attention. So I think that therein lies another message, right? We have to look beyond. We have to look beyond the experience. We got to tap into the message. We got to tap into the meaning. It's deeper than that. Breaking a window is surface level.
I totally agree.
Listen.
It's a shame we only listen.
This is what it's all about.
When it's that time. No, I agree. It's a shame that we only listen when I start tearing up things. I totally agree with you.
It's like being a parent. It's like when you are a parent, if you condition your children to only respond to you when you yell, when you ask them, can you clean your room up? Can you clean your room up? But you have conditioned them to only respond when you yell. They're like, well, why are you yelling so much? Because that's the only time you listen to me. Mm-hmm. So if in fact you only listen to me when I am rebelling, you have conditioned, you are seeing what you created. White America, they taught us violence. They taught us looting.
We learned this from somewhere.
We learned it from somewhere. So this is me speaking. They lucky all we want is equity and not revenge, to be honest.
Period.
That's one thing I got to say about that. The second thing, when it talks about police reform, listen, I'll say this. I respect police officers. You all do a job that I would have never done in a lifetime. I have so much respect for men and women who sign up to wear that badge. Certainly. To protect the city that I live in, the state, the country, whether you're a soldier, you're a paramedic, you're a physician. I have respect for the profession. I have respect for what you do. But for me, there is no good cop until good cops will prosecute bad cops.
I said that.
Period. And I'm in agreement with you, Brother Ray. I'm just like, you cannot, yes, okay, we pick and choose our narrative to fit what's comfortable for us, right? So you want to throw all rioters. Are we really the ones breaking windows? Are we really the ones burning our communities? Or is that the narrative that they want you to believe? Right? There are always multiple stories, but hell, when Fox News basically analyzes what happens to the S&P 500 when a Black man is killed, you tell me what that enraged me. Mm-hmm. You monetized, you literally looked at what the S&P did after people were killed, Dr. Martin Luther King. Man, come on.
But our existence has always been monetized, right? And talking about what you said, we learned this from somewhere, particularly within the Black community. Afro-cultural ethos has always been about togetherness. It has always been about bringing people together. It's always been about collective unity, right? This divisive, this binary, this violence even, we learned from somewhere. We were taught that. And I think, like you said, if that's the only time that we can get attention, that's the only time that we can get someone to listen.
Not only are we taught it, white America is taught it. When you weaponize your whiteness against Black men, that should be a crime. I cannot yell fire in a crowded theater, but a white woman can call the police and change her voice and talk about how threatened she feels. And that's not a crime. Something is wrong with that. You weaponize your whiteness. Oh no.
Yeah. Robin DiAngelo calls it white fragility. For all of our listeners, these are resources. Please do your reading.
I got tons of them.
Yeah.
But that they learn it We learn it. And you cannot live in this country. You cannot be born in the United States of America and not be a racist. And when I say that not tongue in cheek. I don't think everybody is wearing a hood and they want to dismantle, like take out all Black people and send us to Africa. But there's like a continuum of racism, the way you think, the way you act, how we give preferential treatment. When I'm interviewing people, we are drawn to people who are like us because we think that we know what they think and what they'll do, and we give them the benefit of the doubt and we trust them. So when I'm hiring, I'm more likely to hire people who have similar backgrounds, who sound like me, who look like me, who have similar values. And so whenever there's an advantage to one person or one group, there is always a disadvantage. Right. So in this country, in our DNA, in the very makeup of our soil is the original sin, slavery, and this notion of white supremacy. And until we truly dismantle that, we will be stuck in a system that oppresses.
LaRhonda, how do we dismantle that? Why are we 60 years later still talking about still talking about civil rights issues, and still talking about we only can get it done when we, not get it done, they can only hear us when we burning the buildings and when we're looting the buildings, they can only hear us. They was doing that in the 60s.
Because we've never dismantled the system. We've only reformed it. Slavery just changed to pipeline prison. Like, we never dismantled it. We only reformed it. And when we took strides to dismantle it, Black Wall Street, Idlewild, when we separated and had advancement, who came in and wrecked that? Who came in and tore that up?
Absolutely.
So it wasn't a dismantlement. It was reform. We put Band-Aids on it. We closeted the racism. And then we began to move the targets. We began to quietly create policies on how we vote and how we redline and how we give loans. And so it just started to look different. We didn't change anything. We just changed how it looked.
So are we coming out of this uprising with change? I'm gonna
let my brother go ahead because he about to go ahead.
So let me pose it in this way too, because we have the Honorable Sherry Danego on here, Congresswoman, and she wants to know, now that we have mainstream attention, how do we believe this will advance our economic equality?
Just say something like that. Yeah.
I think addressing economic equality, in addition to dismantling racism, again, goes back to what we were saying earlier. It is not individuate, it is systemic. It is across the board. And I think that we have to do some serious defining, because not everyone is defining racism the same way, right? Some people characterize or associate racism with stereotyping. And the same goes with bigotry, and the same goes with discrimination. They're all very, very, very different. When we deal with racism, we're dealing with not only, and white supremacy in particular, we're not just dealing with this idea that one race is superior to the other, right? But we're dealing with the ways in which systems infiltrate and reinforce those notions of superiority. And by creating this binary system where it's either this or that, where you're either rich or poor, you're Black or white, right? This creation of binaries is deeply rooted in this idea of racism and how it is achieved and how it is reinforced in systems. So to literally dismantle racism is to dismantle the systems that we have constructed socially in our nation. So when it comes to addressing economic inequalities, again, that is something that's systemic. It is not individual. And I think that we have to look very seriously, very closely, and pay very serious attention to how we are handling resources, to how we're handling access, to how we are handling life and existing in and of itself.
Good. So again, we've almost come up to an hour, so we're coming up to the end. And I knew we would not have enough time, but I do want to move into solutions, because I want to talk about and give people hope. Because what did you say, LaRhonda? That was so pivotal and so revelation. Had so much revelation impacted to me. Say that again.
I said in scripture, whether you believe in scripture or not, there's a scripture in Proverbs that says, hope deferred makes the heart sick. And when you live in a constant state of hope being deferred, when dreams are not realized, or as soon as you get something, it's taken from you, and you live in a system that is unequal, it is unfair, and your dreams are never realized, you literally become sick. And it has catastrophic consequences on people, on us, physically, emotionally. We could talk about health disparities and how that this impacts our health, our mental health, our physical health. And so there's a spiritual connotation to this, and that's not what we're here to discuss today. But when you don't have hope, your heart is sick. And this for my white folks, when you see me, or non-people of color, right? When you see me as a threat to your position in the world or your position in society, you don't value me. And if I have no value, then my life is of no consequence to you. The life of my boys are of no consequence to you. The life of my granddaughters are of no consequence to you, because we have bought into this notion of there's a limited amount of resources, and all of us at the bottom are fighting over the law of scarcity. We're fighting over a few resources, while a few people at the top are acting like we're puppeteers and we're down here being foolish. So it's so much that we need to do, but hope deferred makes us sick, and we have to begin to address the root of the sickness.
So give me solutions. How do Black people fight systemic racism in the corporate system? And what do you say for white people to help fight systemic racism in the corporate America?
I just give a few, because I know we're coming up. I probably got 10, but I'm gonna give you about 2 or 3 off the top of my head.
Shoot them out. Shoot your 10 out. We need all 10. We got a little time.
I'm like, right. We have to look at our board composition, our boards, right? We have to be governed. Matter of fact, Warren Buffett, you shouldn't even be allowed to take a company public unless you have a woman and a person of color on your board. You shouldn't be allowed to even go public. Your boards, look at your hiring practices, look at your promotion and your retention, because Blacks are disproportionately represented in layoffs as well as furloughs and unemployment. Look at our practices, right? Create a bench and a pipeline into senior leadership positions. Give people adequate, I'm always on the fence about training, right? Because people know more than they do. So you can have a lot of knowledge. It doesn't always translate into action, but it's really important to educate your workforce and create a climate, a culture of inclusion, and hold people accountable when they fall short. So set DE&I metrics, hold people accountable, look at your hiring practices, diversify your board. Create partnerships with HBCUs. I get so sick of people saying, we can't find Black talent. You're not looking. It ain't hard. So I got tons of resources. Eric, if you want them later, I'll type them up and you can share them broadly.
Absolutely. So when we get to the end, you can tell people where they can find you on social media and all those things where they get your contact information. Deputy Sheriff Ray, what can Black people do? What can white people do to fight systemic racism in the law enforcement judicial world, I guess, that you're a part of?
Yeah, so as I said, I think toward the beginning, we have to, as law enforcement, call those out that we know are the problem. When we talk about systemic racism in law enforcement and police agencies, we know who they are. When it's a shame that we recognize it and we don't deal with it. Sometimes you don't deal with them for manpower issues. If I start weeding those out and I'm reducing my manpower, we're thinking more about that than we're thinking about what it's going to cost the city and revenue and lawsuits, what it's going to cost the city, because you got bad cops out there hurting and brutalizing people. Racism is something that we have to attack from the root of it as soon as we see it. And in law enforcement, we got to call it out. We got, as LaRhonda said, she said, there's no good cops until good cops start calling out bad cops. I still like to I don't do absolutes like, because there still are some good cops, but I get her point. We got the good cops have to rise up. We have to stand up. We can't look the other way. as leaders, even in police agencies, we can't look the other way. That's my friend. I used to have a friend, and I have a friend in law enforcement. He's retired and moved on. And I was his supervisor. I used to tell him, listen, you can't, and it was a black, so we're not really talking about racism, but we're talking about just conduct and cops calling others out. I said, you're my friend and you work for me. You can't make me supervise you. You're the one that's got to be the stellar person because everybody knows you're my friend. And so you can't make me have to deal with you. When we turn that on to now, it's a white cop that we're dealing with and we see that there's an issue, there's a racism issue. I have to call that person out and say, listen, this is what I see. And what I see and what the public sees, that's their perspective. And it's real to them. And so you have to make sure that you're going to do things the right way. I'm going to make sure as your leader, as your supervisor, you're going to do the things the right way. And when others who have that same mindset start seeing us as leaders deal with those issues head on and swiftly, I think we start to change. We start to gradually change the systemic racism that exists within most police agencies.
I do have a question for you that I meant to ask you. You're trained to not racial profile, but to profile to a degree, correct?
Say about that?
You're trained to profile, to look for certain things in law enforcement that may attach themselves to criminal behavior.
So I don't think we're not trained to do that, but
Okay.
over your time, over your experience and
Okay.
you subconsciously, and let me tell you this, sometimes profiling is not all bad. Listen, I'm out working a patrol car, and because of my experience and because I know my community, and because I know what Jakkar, who hangs out on 7 Mile, looks like and acts like when he sees me, when he's up to no good, I'm not profiling him necessarily. I know him and I know that look. And I know when I pass you up and I'm looking in my rear view mirror and you're looking down at my car and you look at, I'm like, turn around, it's a gun in that car. It's a gun in that car. And so it's not that I'm profiling you, a black man, and you got a gun in your car. I've learned to save all of our lives what it looks like sometimes. And you deal with that and you handle that. And I save your life, or I save my life, or I save his life from having an illegal gun and he should not have one.
Okay. And LaRhonda has a statement. I know she does. She blew up like a fish.
I see it. She's like, let me at it. You know?
But you trying to couch and make stereotype it's like a contradiction. I'm not profiling, but I am.
He asked me were we trained to.
That's what I said.
No, okay, right. You're right.
We're not taught to do that.
We're not taught to do it.
Right.
I would challenge that, but I've been trained as an officer, so I cannot challenge you on that regard, right? But over time, if a certain characteristic you associate with criminal behavior, criminal activity, and so you create your brain creates mental shortcuts. It's the way we are hardwired. So if over years of training, whether it's your lived experience or the experience that you've seen in TV and movies and in the media, whether you like it or not, right?
Yes.
You are creating mental shortcuts that supports a negative stereotype of people of color. Period. It is. And so, yes, can sometimes that stereotype be correct? Absolutely. But what happens when it's wrong? Because we don't take and stop and judge each person individually, because so much of our daily interactions are undergirded and supported by our own implicit biases, which are learned early in life. They are supported by our lived experiences, by TV, by media, by stereotypical conversations, by the communities we live in. And so I just can't, when that comes out, I feel like we are trying to make excuses for behavior that unintentionally harms people that look like me.
Yeah, I agree. And again, you said harm people that look like you. If you think there's some crime afoot, or you think that characteristic or what he did is probably something wrong, and you deal with that, white or black officers, and you deal with that, and you find that you were mistaken in that, we talk about how you deal with that. So again, I can handle that, I can see my brother. Come here, my man. Look, let me talk to you. What's up, brother? We chatting, and I'm patting him down at the same time. And oh, we got a gun.
Ray, you're a unicorn. You're a unicorn, brother. You're a unicorn. You one in a million. You policing with respect.
But we
you're
got
coming from a position of like you're a black unicorn, brother. Like you are policing the community that you value and respect. And
Absolutely.
So yes, he might be out here doing crime, but you still gonna respect him as a man, as a human.
Absolutely.
But too many times we are not seen as human. And that is when there's the problem. You are coming from a place where you are policing with respect. Too often, officers don't live where they police.
That's the problem.
They don't live where they police. They don't sit down across the table and break bread with people who look, sound, smell different. And so we fear difference. We fear it. That's a problem.
So when we had residency in the city of Detroit when I was on the police department, and we lost it halfway through my time. I think again, residency made us police the right way.
Correct. That could be part of a change or reform or process. If you don't police the community live there.
What happened in Michigan and some agencies in Missouri, I know of, Kansas City Police Department, they have to live in Kansas City, Missouri, in the city, in the proper. But in Michigan, it was ruled unconstitutional. So we lost it. You can come
Systems of oppression.
You can come from Mount Pleasant if you can make roll call in time, and maybe and I'm not saying Mount Pleasant is a white community. I'm saying far away. You can come from there as long as you can make roll call. You can be a police officer. You've never had any experience.
I'm coming to you, Jakkar, but I got to stay there because I want to be responsible.
You've never had any experience with interacting with black folk. Now you're coming down to the city and you're going to police these black folk. And what you hearing from your family as you leaving out of that suburban, wherever you live, up north somewhere, what you hearing out the door, now you better get home any way you can. Now you know you're going out to police those people. You better get back here. Now all that's in their mind is, I got to police these people and I got to get back home by any means necessary. And I think that's a problem. It's a problem. I think you should reflect the community that you serve. Your residency, your policing, all of that should be because I live in this community, because I look like this community. Not all of us, but we can get those ones that don't look like us. We need to be trying to get them right through diversity, cultural training, diversity training, those things constant. And when we see them falling off the track, it's incumbent upon us as leaders and black police officers to get them right. And if we don't, shame on us.
So Ray, again, being responsible, what is the proper protocol should an African-American male be pulled over? And this is strictly your opinion.
It's strictly my opinion because I talk to young men and I teach this all the time. Listen, at the end of the day, we still should be, I teach my sons and I talk to other people because my sons are 34 and 32 and they in that range still. I teach them that at the end of the day, you still have to comply to what the police officers are asking you to do. We can deal with the rudeness and the demeanor and all of that the next day. But if you dead, I ain't even thinking about that. I've just lost a dead son. Why did I lose him? Because when the police officer pulled him over with his attitude, my son or my nephew started to, I'm just going, well, why are you pulling me over? Well, I know my rights. Well, I do this and that. That's getting ready to go bad. That's getting ready to go bad. So I tell my sons, you have to yes, sir, these people. You have to yes, sir. Here's my hands. What do you have in your car? I don't have anything in my car. If you're a CPL holder, and I give a lot of 21, 22-year-olds training, and they become CPL holders. Yes, sir, I have my gun on me. I'm a licensed CPL holder. Where is it? Where is it? It's on my body. Give it to me. No.
Ray,
anything.
Let me ask you a question. What does compliance look like when respectability politics don't work? When I look a certain way, I talk a certain way, I dress a certain way, and it still doesn't work. I think that there have been too many times where individuals has fallen through the cracks because they have come in contact with agents of the state who have operated as both judge and jury.
Right.
and they have fallen through the cracks. So what does compliance look like in a climate and in a culture where respectability politics don't work?
So at the end of the day, what I tell my brothers and sisters who understand what I'm saying when I say this is that you will never win a fight with a police officer in the street. You never ever will.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't understand that, you're going to be in a casket or you're going to be in jail or it's going to be something. We need to fight those things the right way. I'll let my lawyer fight it. And in today's society, if that white officer and I'm complying and that officer is disrespecting me and not doing me, he's gonna have some problems today because the light is shining now. The light is shining. When we burned America this week and last week, the light is shining. So you have a great opportunity now to just comply, because I'm probably hearing more yes sir, yes, yeah. I'm probably seeing officers today, and it's a continuum, they're trying their best to do the right thing because the light is on now.
Did Philando?
He didn't. You know what? That always happens. That always happens. But so this is what I say, and he should not even be dead. And that officer should have been tried and convicted, and he wasn't. That's a whole nother problem. But
He wasn't.
But he was not. Philando didn't have a weapon. The officer said he was reaching for something. Whatever happened, I'm telling my people, we're not reaching for anything. We're not. Can it still happen? Yeah, Mike Brown, hands up, shot, unarmed. It still happened. But I think today, because we can't go back and erase the hands of time, but today, I think if we continue to do that, what we're supposed to do, the officers know the cameras are on. The officers know, and you're gonna still have that one. You had that officer that killed George Floyd, and looked like he didn't have a care in the world. You're still gonna have that one. But I think for the most part, if they comply, if we comply. Listen, I'm the deputy chief of Wayne County Sheriff's Office. All right, I live in a community because I choose to live in a community where the minority is 3%. There's 3% minority. Everything else is white or something else other than minority, and I choose that. Listen, if I'm driving my wife's car and the police pull me over, and I know they ain't pulled me over for it because I'm doing the speed limit, because maybe they profiled me. Guess what? As a black man, I'm not challenging that officer. I ain't getting ready to play with him. Right quick, officer, I'm the deputy chief of Wayne County Sheriff's Office. That's gonna be the first thing that come out of my mouth. I'm not a threat. I got a gun, yes, there it is. I ain't getting ready to sit here. I'm gonna see how far he's gonna go. I might end up dead. And I ain't willing to play that game. I'm just not willing to. Because I don't want to die. And so I think what it looks like is what we still have to do. And we have to pray that it comes out right. And I think for the most part, it does. But we have to continue to do it.
Okay, I'm gonna turn you loose, Jakkar, because you've been sitting there patiently waiting. Listen, I want to ask you two things. One, does this time feel different? And then the same question that I presented to them. What do we do as Black people to end systemic racism, to change it? And what should white people do? And you can go in any order.
Is this time different? The optimist in me would like to suggest that it is, and that it could be a start. We're seeing officers who are being convicted, the 4 in Minneapolis, or rather arrested. We celebrate the conviction. That's when we celebrate. So the arrest, okay, what's going to happen afterwards? So I think that this has the potential to be different, but I would like people to understand and realize that this is not a moment that should be looked at and observed as something that's passing, but I think that it should be handled as a movement, something that has to transpire over time. This is something, again, when we talk about systems, this is something that has to be dismantled over time. This taps into voting and other corporate measures that LaRhonda was talking about. I've never gotten so many emails, and I've never seen so many tweets, and I've never seen so many publishings from companies and corporations who are supporting this Black Lives Matter movement? I don't know. Could it be corporate pandering? Could be. Even the NFL coming out saying that they got it wrong. So I think
They got to bring Cap back.
What's that?
They got to bring Cap back before I'm
Maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I'm not celebrating because you have some people who are jumping on the bandwagon for the sake of a political and corporate expediency, right? If you're going to do something and if you're going to enact change, like LaRhonda said, let's look at your board. We've seen you post a Black Lives Matter on Twitter, but let's look at your board. Who do you have sitting on there? And don't reinforce this notion of diversity, equity, inclusion with white women. Who do you have on your board? Who is qualified? Who looks like me? So these are some things that we should consider when it comes to moving forward and how to sort of move toward the light. I think that we should also take into consideration and reimagine what it means to embody multiple identities, what it means to embody multiple realities. I think back to W.E.B. Du Bois in his book, The Souls of Black Folk. He talked about what it meant to be both American and Negro, because in many ways, to be American is to be anti-Negro. So what does it mean to be Black and American? Two different strivings. What does it mean to be a cisgender heterosexual Black police officer in the context of Ray Washington? What does it mean to be an agent of the state and still be a Black man? A Black man who historically has not been valued, has not been seen. The whole world is watching, but still invisible. So what does that mean to embody multiple identities? What does it mean to show up as this and that in different space? And I think then and only then, once we reimagine what the world looks like outside of this binary confining logic, only then will we be able to dismantle what we alone cannot disrupt and to resist what we alone cannot control. I think that if we come together and realize that if one of us aren't free, none of us are free, then and only then will we enact real change.
Okay. Excellent. You all have been amazing. I'm going to give you closing remarks. I'm going to go in the order of LaRhonda and then Ray. Then I'll come back to you, Jakkar, and you can tell people where they can find you, any information you want to leave with America. And then we're going to read the names of some people that have suffered injustices at the hands of white people and have not gotten justice to date. And then Jakkar will give us a closing prayer so we can bless this nation, and then we'll be done. So I'll start with you, LaRhonda. What do you want to close us?
I think that these conversations should and must continue. And I think that they should include a variety of voices. I appreciate being a part of the discussion today, and I welcome an opportunity for us to continue and not to talk just for the sake of talking, but to truly manifest and sustain a rebellion that creates permanent change in this country. And it's not going to come simply by Black people doing it. We need white allies. We need people to exercise their power, but how we spend our money, because nobody's going to dismantle a system that supports them, that profits them. And so we have to collectively come together and not talk, but strategize and implement changes that will sustain it for a lifetime for my children's children. I'm on Facebook, same name, LaRhonda Chastang. You can email me at LaRhonda@thechastanggroup.com. And I'll post some resources because I do want to challenge people to lead courageously, to lead inclusively. And I challenge all of those non-Black people who are parts of my life and who love me to add their voices to this conversation.
Excellent. Ray Washington.
So go ahead, Eric.
No, go ahead. You have the floor.
So thank you, Eric, for putting this panel together and then putting this on. I've learned a lot. Jakkar is my man for forever. And LaRhonda is my new friend forever. because I'm gonna definitely be trying to reach out and get some of that wisdom that you're spitting out for sure, from your perspective, and I appreciate that. Just from a law enforcement standpoint, again, I think we as the good cops need to call out the bad cops. We have to show that there's no blue line, there's no us against them. That's not who I am. That's not what we should be. That's not what we came on the job to do. We came on the job to protect and serve. And I think that's what we should always be maintaining in our thoughts and in our minds. And it's up to us that when we see that not happening, we call it out. As leaders, we have to address it. We have to address it. And as I said before, as the young people, when you're looking at what am I going to do? What am I going to get into? Maybe I'm going to do a trade. Maybe I'm going straight to college. Maybe I'm going to be a plumber. Maybe I'm going to be an electrician. Think about maybe you want to be in law enforcement. Maybe you want to maybe you want to be the change that you want to see. Maybe you want to rise to the point of deputy chief in your career. Maybe you want to be in a position where you can now control some things locally. And if we all start spreading that around locally in the United States of America, I think we can start to change the narrative and we can start to turn this around. So we're not burning up our country, but we're building it up, and we're all doing it the right way from a law enforcement perspective.
Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead, Jakkar.
I think just to add on to what the other panelists have already said, and again, thank you for creating this space and facilitating this conversation, this much needed conversation. And to the other panelists, Ray and LaRhonda, thank you so much for your insight and for your experience. LaRhonda, we love learning from you. We love listening to Black women. We love being quiet, right, and listening. And I think that comes with checking privilege, which is something that that's another thing that we have to unpack, right? Being able to acknowledge our privilege. Even those of us who may feel oppressed in some ways, we can still be oppressive in others. The oppressed can oppress, right? And that goes back to this idea of embodying multiple identities. And so when we really look at challenging and pushing back and dismantling patriarchy and white supremacy, which are these ideals that create permanent underclasses, we really have to move into a direction that says, look, if we're going to talk Black Lives Matter, all Black lives have to matter. And this is an issue that I think a lot of us aren't really willing to call out. We talk a lot about George Floyd, and in as much as he, exclaimed that he couldn't breathe, and that he called out for his mother. I mean, this innocent Black man, this unarmed Black man, right? But very rarely do we hear conversations about Breonna Taylor. Her name desires and deserves to be said too, right? So bringing a more intersectional approach into our activism and realizing that, again, all of us are inextricably tied together in some way, shape, or form. It is not enough for us to matter. It's not enough. We have to be valued. We have to be loved. We have to be appreciated. We have to be protected, and we have to be seen as irreplaceable. Not like the Target, they're gonna build another one. Okay, the CEO already put out a statement. They're gonna build another one. The Windows and AutoZone, they got insurance. But this life, this body cannot be replaced. So we have to look at the value and appreciate Black life and realize that it is something that this country cannot survive without. We built this country, okay? And so I think, again, we have to pay close attention to how we see ourselves and ultimately how we imagine the world in terms of how Black people will be handled.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. You all have been absolutely phenomenal. Like I said, again, I do want to call out the names of some of the people that have unjustly been murdered at the hands of white people and have not gotten justice. I was on a Zoom call today with my company, and not today, but Friday, and they were talking about these things. And I had a good boss that was fair, and he was talking about how he was raised in a racial home. And he was just saying that, he didn't realize that till he came to the company and started working with good Black people. And so he was my direct manager at one time. And he said what made him realize how far he came is when somebody came up to him, African-American man, said, hey man, I think it's cool that you have 5 Black managers. And he said, I've come that far, but I really realized how far I have to go. So anyway, with that, I raised my hand in the chat and I said, I got to say something. And I gave him kudos for the atmosphere that we had, because he was a starch Republican, and we would have some off the record HR conversations, because we could have that, go to lunch, and then figure out how we're going to win as a team. But with saying, I was watching George Floyd's homegoing, and Reverend Sharpton did a great job. And then when they did the silence for the 8 minutes and 46 seconds, it overwhelmed me, and I cried and got emotional, because, and I'm saying this on the Zoom call, that it was not just 8 minutes and 46 seconds. It's been 400 years. And, your knee has been in our necks for 400 years, and we're tired, and Black lives do matter. So I know that you all have made a difference today, and that, I encourage everybody, if nobody comes to save us, save yourself. You encourage your sphere of influence. I encourage white people, have those conversations at the barbecue, at the picnic, on the boat up north, that, there's going to be some things said that I challenge you to go in there and correct, just like we have to do as well. But with that being said, I just wanted to acknowledge some of the people that have succumbed to murder in this country, that did not suffer justice. And I just want to call their names. You let me know if you can see that. Uh-oh, there it is. Can you guys see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So I just want to take, and each of you take about 7 lines, because it's a shame that it's so many up here. And let's say their names. And LaRhonda, you'll go first, then I'll go next, then Ray will go next, then Jakkar, you'll go last. And if you would just say a prayer after we finish the last name under there, then we'll be done. And I think we've done our job. So LaRhonda, you can have it and take it away.
Yes, sir. Eric Gardner, John Crawford III, Michael Brown, Azil Ford, Dante Parker, Michelle, I can't pronounce her last name, Lord, Laquan McDonald, George Mann, Tanisha Anderson, Akai Gurley, Tamir Rice, Romaine Riceman, Jermaine Reed, Matthew Frank Smart, Natasha McKinnon, Tony Robinson, Anthony Hill, Maya Hall, Philip White, Eric Harris, Walter Scott, William Chapman II, Alexia Christian, Brendan Glenn, Victor Manuel LaRosa, Jonathan Sanders, Freddie Blue, Joseph Mann, Salvador Ellswood, Sandra Bland.
Go ahead, Ray.
Albert Joseph Davis, Darius Stewart, Billy Ray Davis, Samuel Du Bois, Michael Sabi, Brian Keith, Day, Christian Taylor, Troy Robinson, Asham Manley, Felix Kumai, Keith Harrison McLeod, Junior Prosper, Lamontez Jones, Peterson Brown, Dominic Hutchison, Anthony Ashford, Alonzo Smith, Tyree Crawford, India Kager, Levante Biggs, Michael Lee Marshall, Jamar Clark, Richard Perkins, Nathaniel Harris Pickett, Benny Lee Tigner, Manuel Espinel, Michael Noel, Kevin Matthews, Betty Jones.
Quintennial LaGreer, Keith Childress Jr., Janet Wilson, Randy Nelson, Anthony Scott, Wendell Celestine, David Joseph, Kaylin Rockmore, Dezon Perkins, Christopher Davis, Marco Lloyd, Peter Gaines, Tori Robinson, Darius Robinson, Kevin Hicks, Mary Troglitzo, DeMarcus Samir, and Willie Tillman.
Terrell Thomas, Civil Smith, Alton Sterling, Philando Castile, Terrence Crutcher, Paul O'Neill, Altiero Woods, Jordan Edwards, Aaron Bailey, Ronell Foster, Stefan Clark, Antoine Rose II, Botham Jean, Pamela Turner, Dominique Clayton, Tatiana Jefferson, Christopher Whitfield, Christopher McCorvey, Eric Reason, Michael Lorenzo Dean, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd.
If you can just give us a prayer for this nation or however you feel led, Jakkar, and then I'll close us out.
Father, we thank you for this moment, this time of space, of conversation, of dialogue, but also education and activism. And Lord, we're not asking for direction because we know where we need to go, what we need to do. We just need the courage to do it. So give us the courage, the tenacity, and the intestinal fortitude to move forward and to make the word become flesh so that we can breathe, so that we can matter, so that we can be valued, and so that justice can roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. In the name of your Son who turned water into wine, amen.
Amen. We've done what we're supposed to do here. You guys and gals have been absolutely outstanding. Yes, give them some thumbs up to you that are still with us. We went over time, but this is a conversation that has to be had and we must continue. So if you've enjoyed it, give us some love, show some love for Miss LaRhonda Chastang. Yeah, give her some thumbs up. She's been absolutely dynamic from my corporate diversity perspective. Brother Ray Washington, Deputy Sheriff Ray Washington, thank you for your service. Absolutely. Jakkar Aimery, our change agent and activist, thank you so much. Brother Pastor Tim was trying to get in, but his Wi-Fi wouldn't let him be great. So he wasn't at his location, but we'll get him back in another day because he's been on the front line for Breonna Taylor down there in Kentucky doing some outstanding work. So we appreciate him and we'll do this again. Thank you. As always, this is eThought Conversations. I try to leave you with something. And so in my eThought Conversations, I want to leave you with this. If I can get my note there it is, right there. I just want to leave you with this. My eThought for the day is, what if 2020 isn't canceled? What if 2020 is the year we've been waiting for? A year so uncomfortable, so painful, so scary, so raw, that it finally forces us to grow. A year that screams so loud, finally awaking us from ignorant slumber. A year we finally accept the need for change. Declare change, work for change, become the change. A year we finally band together instead of pushing each other further apart. My brothers and my sisters, 2020 isn't canceled, but rather it's the most important year of them all.
Right.
I love y'all. Thank you so much. Got a little bit more? Yes.
Can I let LaRhonda know? I know you got 5,000 friends, but you're gonna have to let one of them go because I'm about to request you now. So just Ray Washington, it's coming.
Come on, brother. Come on, Ray. I got
Let
you.
one of them 5,000 go so you can let me in. All right.
Make room for two. I'm coming too.
There you
And
go.
I'm going to jump on board as well. So you're going to have to open up a fan page. That's open up a fan page.
There you
And that's it, y'all. Y'all been absolutely amazing. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Y'all go get some of this sunshine and let's make this the best year of our lives.
Blessings.
Blessings, y'all. Thanks.
Peace.